anyone now can Google, and nobody does this. I mean, CNN doesn't do this. The Amazing Atheist doesn't do this. Anyone can Google the percentage of the American economy that is comprised of industrial employment. You can also try to get statistics for manufacturing employment specifically. The category of industry is very, very broad. I just note many things are included in industry that are not factory employment, that are not manufacturing. But in any case, and you will see that over time, over the last 40 years, the percentage of the American economy comprised of industry, the percentage of people employed in industry, has gone down and down and down. It's even gone down since 2008, but throughout our lifetimes, going back many, many decades. Why have I never once heard Bernie Sanders or any of his supporters or even any of his critics deal with the question of projecting, estimating for the future what will happen to the American economy, what will happen to American industry, what will happen to American manufacturing if the minimum wage is raised to $15 an hour? If we can't talk this through on YouTube, if we can't really recklessly and honestly talk this through, why does this medium exist? This video is partly talking about a YouTuber named The Amazing Atheist. It's partly talking about a YouTuber named Anissian. And it's partly talking about the meaning of YouTube itself, of doing YouTube. And I want you guys in the audience to keep in mind, every single one of you could start uploading videos tomorrow. There's no barrier here between the audience and the creator's role. In the past, it's not as if you could go to a Hollywood movie, being projected onto the silver screen in a theater. It's not as if you could sit there in the audience and say, oh, tomorrow I could wake up and make a movie of my own. But this platform, this unique medium we all participate in, there's no barrier between the artist's role and the creator's role. Tomorrow, you could sit down in front of a camera with a microphone. You could stop listening and start talking, and you could become one of the people who contributes your own life, your own experience, your own perspective, your own opinions to this thing we do called YouTube. So yeah, for me, for you, for many of us, the meaning of YouTube is a significant part of the meaning of life. And I want to start this video by saying, honesty is an important part of what we do on YouTube. But honesty is a simple word gathering together a lot of complex concepts. And what really matters here on YouTube is not the same kind of honesty of a little kid admitting to his or her parents that they've stolen something. It's not the same kind of honesty as a boyfriend admitting that he cheated on his girlfriend. What really matters on YouTube is a kind of rigorous, risk-taking honesty where we challenge ourselves and we challenge the audience by talking through issues in a rigorous way and in a manner that really thinks through the full consequences, the full implications of our ideas. I look at a guy like The Amazing Atheist, who now is primarily a channel talking about politics, and it seems to me that he's completely forgotten that, if you look at what he does on YouTube and you look at broadcast news like CNN, he has every disadvantage except for this kind of rigorous risk-taking honesty, right? That's the one thing he can do that CNN can't do. Right now, again, I'm going to come back to Anissian and talk about Anissian in just a moment. Something similar could be said. Something similar could be said for you and me, all of us here participating in YouTube to some extent. The Amazing Atheist made a video, and it's a very successful video. The audience seems to like it. A lot of viewers tuned in for it. He made a video talking about illegal immigration and low-wage labor in the United States and the policies of Bernie Sanders. Okay? And from my perspective, his video is really cowardly and really dishonest. It's more like the type of half-truth I would expect from CNN, from broadcast television news. Okay? Now, broadcast television news, let's kind of appreciate the position they're in. They have to be a little bit dishonest and a little bit censored, and, they have to have this veneer of professionalism. But on the other hand, they have access to resources, they have access to research, they have access to politicians, they have access to interviews. They have staff distributed around the world who can actually go to an event and witness it in person and report on it. CNN has many, many advantages over a YouTuber, right? But a YouTuber can come on camera and really talk through the issues in all their implications in a kind of radically, unsettlingly honest way, where we talk about what it means to us, what it could mean in the future, where we really think things through and deal with the unthinkable consequences of these ideas, of these political policies, and maybe of the decisions we make in our own lives, so on and so forth, right? I mean, not every video has to be deeply personal. It could be political, it could be economic. And I'm sitting there watching this guy. Of course, he's one of the original, he's one of the guys who redefined this medium and how it works. And he redefined it just through his own brainless, self-indulgent shenanigans. Like, I'm not saying that the Amazing Atheist was a theorist or a philosopher who came here on YouTube and changed the way YouTube works. He was a reckless idiot, but he improvised and innovated and changed the way YouTube works. And I would say that about Anissian too. Anissian is a complete idiot. But for a lot of us, he made us all think differently about the creative role of a full-time YouTuber or a professional YouTuber, or what it meant to aspire to do YouTube as a job, whether under the heading of commentary or comedy or even politics or even activism. All these people are in part kind of leaders of political opinion and activism. If we can't come on camera and really be honest, recklessly honest, risk-takingly honest, if the Amazing Atheist can't come on camera and really talk through illegal immigration and its implications for low-wage labor in the United States, if he has to be this much of a coward and be self-censored, also self-centered, it's both. If he has to be self-censored and carefully couch his terms and make all these mealy-mouthed excuses, if that guy can't sit down and really talk through the hypocrisies and contradictions in the political platform of Bernie Sanders, who can? Like, who are you going to tune into? Because you can't get that. You can't get that from CNN. Now, I'll give you a really brief example. I am going to come back to Anissian here. It bothers me that I read seemingly respectable research reports about Bernie Sanders discussing the knock-on effects, the economic effects of his proposal for a $15 minimum wage. And these are completely dishonest. They're completely lacking this kind of honesty. And sir, you can Google around right now, and you'll see these reports. They look very respectable. They're made by political action committees and lobbying groups, various kinds of pro-Bernie Sanders political forces that are out there, and they'll reassure you that all kinds of experts and professors and even leaders of industry, various sectors of the economy, they support a $15 minimum wage, and there are only positive things to say about a $15 minimum wage, and there's absolutely nothing negative to say about a $15 minimum wage. Now, one possible negative aspect to think through is what the Amazing Atheist was trying to wrestle with, that if wages in the United States are radically higher than South America, Central America, Latin America, then obviously people want to come from those countries to the United States to work at those higher wages. Yes. Minimum wage in Mexico, $6 an hour. You tell me what industry, what form of manufacturing, what form of manual labor would not relocate from the United States to Mexico if in the United States minimum wage is $15 and in Mexico the minimum wage is $6. The difference in wages, just looking at these two countries that are adjacent, the difference in wages is so extreme that you could not justify manufacturing T-shirts in the United States. You could not justify manufacturing televisions, blenders, kitchenware, cars, anything, right? On the contrary, with so radical and fundamental a difference in wages, you could justify relocating American workers to Mexico, getting work permits for American workers to live and work legally in Mexico, where they would get lower wages and also have better purchasing power, probably have a better quality of life than they would in the United States at the same level of wages, right? So anyone now can Google, and nobody does this. I mean, CNN doesn't do this. The Amazing Atheist doesn't do this. Anyone can Google the percentage of the American economy that is comprised of industrial employment. You can also try to get statistics for manufacturing employment specifically. The category of industry is very, very broad. I just note many things are included in industry that are not factory employment, that are not manufacturing. But in any case, and you will see that over time, over the last 40 years, the percentage of the American economy comprised of industry, the percentage of people employed in industry, has gone down and down and down. It's even gone down since 2008, but throughout our lifetimes, going back many, many decades. Why have I never once heard Bernie Sanders or any of his supporters or even any of his critics deal with the question of projecting, estimating for the future what will happen to the American economy, what will happen to American industry, what will happen to American manufacturing if the minimum wage is raised to $15 an hour? It's so fundamental and so obvious a question. You can go through sector by sector. Now, there are some industries that won't move, that won't be able to relocate, right? I mean, okay, fishing, agriculture, yes, but those same industries could also massively switch from legal to illegal employment. And I've lived in countries where that's a huge problem. In Thailand, a huge percentage of the people working on fishing boats are working illegally when I was there, including outright slave labor, really, really bad examples like that. That's one of the reasons it was studied and published about, was the concern about slave labor, not just illegal labor. So farming and fishing, those industries that can't relocate to Mexico, they can start employing people illegally. You could have a huge black market for labor because $15 an hour is unattainable for the employers. You get this kind of response, okay? And on the other hand, every industry that can relocate will relocate. And Mexico is, of course, not the lowest set of wages in the world, not by a long shot. Currently, unemployment in Mexico is only about 3%, 3% or 4%, around there. It varies from month to month. But basically, unemployment rate in Mexico is as close to zero as it can be in this type of economy. There's the whole continent of Africa. There are large parts of Asia. All over the world, there are low-wage places where you can manufacture and then export to the United States. There are many, many options beyond Mexico. But the example of Mexico alone, in a world where the United States adopts a $15 an hour minimum wage, in the absence of other policies to compensate, and I've discussed policies to compensate, past. If we can't talk this through on YouTube, if we can't really recklessly and honestly talk this through, why does this medium exist? Why are we here? What do we have mouths for? What do we have brains for? What do we have cameras for? Okay? Because I really feel like this kind of honesty, even if you just come on camera and say you don't know, even if you just come on camera and say what I said, I wish there were economists crunching these numbers and doing projections. I wish there were supporters of Bernie Sanders, not even critics, who would attempt to extrapolate and project and estimate what the impacts are. Because currently, if nobody does that, this social cause is just not credible. I've read Bernie Sanders' book. I have it here on my desk, actually. I've read Bernie Sanders' book in addition to listening to his lectures. And the bland reassurances he has that increasing minimum wage will just somehow have a positive effect on the whole economy, it's deeply dishonest. It's propaganda. And it may be propaganda we all participate in, because of course, I would prefer to have Bernie Sanders as president of the United States rather than Donald Trump. Of course I would. Of course I would. But this is a deep concern. Can't I just at least come on camera and share this concern, this doubt, raise this question in a rigorous, honest way, in a way that challenges me, where I'm challenging myself, where I'm challenging my audience. And if we can't do that, what do YouTube channels like The Amazing Atheist become? The Amazing Atheist was a channel that used to take risks, and it used to take risks creatively. And I just want to say this very briefly. When I take risks as a creator, you in the audience may not feel it, you may not perceive it. What's risky for me may not be seen or felt as risky for you. As soon as you accept the idea that what you're doing here on YouTube is a creative process, as soon as you kind of commit to the idea of yourself as a creator, which not everybody does, and that's fine. Some people just film like their family picnic and upload it to YouTube, that's fine. But as soon as you commit to that idea of yourself as a creator, creating content for an audience, there's something much, much scarier than losing the audience. And that is the possibility of losing your own voice as a creator, all right? What's scarier than losing the audience is the storyteller running out of stories to tell, right? Is looking in the mirror one day and recognizing that you've run out of talent. And of course, one of the most dramatic and extreme examples of this we can all witness is Onision. My girlfriend said to me that she could not believe that Onision passed up the opportunity as a comedian to make a joke or make some kind of social commentary out of the fact that Chris Hansen, this TV news broadcaster, showed up on his doorstep. My girlfriend said to me, why didn't Onision run to his closet, get out his banana costume, and come and meet this guy at his doorstep singing and dancing like a banana? Something, anything. If you are a comedian, why can't you step it up and take advantage of this opportunity as a comedian? But we can also say, if you're a political commentator, if you're an activist, if you're a social justice warrior, whoever you think of yourself, advocating for a cause or a message, some kind of attempt to make the world a better place, then also these opportunities, why can't you step up, and have something meaningful to say, take advantage of it in that way, to deliver some kind of message, to examine some kind of social or political problem? Onision must be one of the most dramatic and disastrous examples of a guy who just plain ran out of talent. Someone like Onision started as a comedian, became creatively exhausted as a comedian, moved on increasingly to doing drama and commentary videos. He began leaning on increasingly this idea of himself as kind of morally superior to his audience, this idea of himself giving morality lectures to his audience. He got addicted to that early on. And then under each one of these headings, he quickly became creatively exhausted. He had nothing to say. He really struggled against his audience. He started becoming reproachful to and insulting towards his audience. And then how does the story end? It ends with his bizarre current creative collapse, where all he can do is come on camera and feel sorry for himself and demand to know why the audience doesn't feel sorry for himself also. In a more subtle but no less obvious way, we can look at a guy like The Amazing Atheist and the reinvention of his channel that at one time had scripted comedy, that at one time had a more actively creative role. And we can actually see, I think, a closely parallel form of creative exhaustion. In both cases, I think the fundamentally false step they took was in forgetting the role of this kind of radical honesty, right? An honesty where when you sit down on camera, you're challenging yourself, you're challenging the audience, you're recognizing that we on YouTube will never do what CNN does. I think we will never do what Hollywood does, unless you have a really big budget YouTube channel and a lot of people collaborating and contributing. And YouTube was created as a platform for self-expression. Things changed. The nature of the censorship changed. The nature of the monetization changed. The nature of the opportunity changed, okay? But I think maybe we're forgetting on a really fundamental level what did not change. That this is the medium that for the first time utterly removes that barrier between members of the audience and the filmmaker, or, members of the listening public and the broadcaster, where you and you and you can also step up to take the broadcaster's role. And there's no requirement that you do any research. There's no requirement that you be good looking or talented or hardworking, But I think that one requirement is that you're honest. There's something really valuable about somebody coming on camera and saying, I don't understand. Because that's the one thing nobody on CNN will say. That's the one thing on broadcast news nobody will say. Nobody will read Bernie Sanders' book or listen to Bernie Sanders' speech and just say to you honestly, I don't understand why this guy never deals with the implications of the $15 an hour minimum wage. The Amazing Atheist recent video, nobody will come and say, I don't understand how this guy utterly fails to deal with the implications of immigration policy, illegal immigrants, so on and so forth. He wants to distinguish Donald Trump. There's a huge problem here that could be solved, but could be addressed. But look, even if I don't have the resources in terms of research, I may not have all the answers. But here on YouTube, I can at least have all the right questions. I can share with you my doubts. I can share with you my perspective. And we can challenge one another creatively. That's really the endless horizon of YouTube. Whether you're looking at that horizon in terms of comedy or social commentary or politics. And yet the warning that a real-world example like Anissian or a real-world example like the Amazing Atheist shows for us is, when you wake up every day and stare into that camera, when you every day have to face that endless horizon, when you every day look at that infinite pocket of the internet and you try to fill it, a lot of people within a few years reach a point of creative exhaustion. They reach a point of intellectual bankruptcy, where even when the greatest opportunity shows up on their doorstep, literally, they suddenly find they have no song and dance anymore. They have, in a sense, nothing to say.